Welcome into a Soccer Mom Sunday with Jen Siess. We are bringing this Soccer Mom Sunday to you from Lombardo's near the airport, where I have a story about coming to this particular Lombardo's. It was when my husband, George Gansner, was, in the midst of his MLS and FIFA refereeing, and I think it was before we had our fourth. I think I was meeting him between trips, between work travel and soccer travel, and might have been one of those long ones. We have a Gold Cup coming up. Maybe it was for something like that, where the referees sometimes are gone for a long period of time. And I remember bringing the three up. One was a toddler, and we had, thankfully, the most delicious dinner. It was so nice. Had a glass of wine, and the kids. I'm pretty sure we were in a booth where the kids could kind of, we can keep them trapped between the two of us. That's how you. So you trap kids in maybe a round booth. And the hard part about it wasn't the food. That was great. Got leftovers. Was the fact that it is not, it turns out, really a great idea to bring three young kids who are missing a parent, have them do a quick meetup because he or she is going to leave again. And then you rip that parent away again. And there was copious amounts of crying on the way home from Lombardo's all the way down to Oak Fair, where we lived at the time. So I wouldn't recommend that method, but I would recommend the food. And I'm here now recording because we've taken probably a month to try and get together, but on the recommendation of John Schneider in the St. Louis Soccer Hall of Fame, he connected with me and said, "Have you talked to Karen Lombardo yet?" And I said, "No, I haven't." And I always appreciate referrals. Karen and I connected on text and then have tried it several times. We made it happen. I'm so glad to talk to you today.
Thank you.
It's nice to get it done between busy schedules.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so, of course, I want to go, and we'll go all the way back, right from, quote, back in the day and when you played soccer, and just looking you up was so much fun, looking at a bunch of other names going. It's just always fun to see who's connected, who played with or against to when. But want to call out, of course, being at this location near the airport and your other locations, I'm thinking I might have had some good Lombardo's food at Energizer Park at a city game. Maybe we get some toasted wraps or something maybe brought up, I think.
Yes, we brought some up to the box last year.
Hopefully they didn't hog them. The Apple TV games. Guys didn't hog them. And we actually got some over in the booth. But I remember anytime food is, quote, brought up over media food's fine. For me, you're giving me a free meal and I don't have to do any dishes. I am not too picky. But of course, getting it from one of the restaurateurs or a nearby restaurant, always delicious. And I will tell you, it's always fought over between the booths. Media. I got to ask you, have you been to go to a city game yet?
Yeah, I've been to a couple.
What's your favorite so far?
Well, I just think the way they built the stadium and the venue, just everything is so nice.
Is it surreal? I had in the halftime show, so we're talking on it's Thursday, right? And it's the day after City played Open Cup and beat Union Omaha 2-0. Thank God. And having that be there at City Park or now it's Energizer Park. And I had Mary Carpenter from the 1989-90 women's team that went back-to-back over 30 championships. If you haven't heard the podcast from Debbie Washburn, and then Debbie Washburn and Mary Carpenter, and another person from the team, those are both well worth listening to for, one, just the history. Karen, I don't know if you ever feel like this, but I feel amongst many of we were talking a little bit off mic about it, but amongst my soccer guy friends, and I have a lot of them, as I'm doing this podcast, they're very helpful. So I always appreciate referrals, but I think sometimes they have the misconception that, it's hard for you to find guests because there just aren't as many. And sometimes that could make sense, right? With Title IX and not as many, the game doesn't go back hundreds of years for women. There were attempts a longer time ago, and it got squashed, of course, by society. But I find that it's not really, if I look at your pictures online for UMSL, for the St. Louis Soccer Hall of Fame, for anything else you're written up in, and I see, those every once in a while rare photos that, hey kids, were actually on a real camera where you had to have film and develop it. And I read the names and I'm like, these are all names I know. There were a lot of us who played.
Right.
It's just kind of hard to find us. Mm-hmm. And I'm not really sure why that is. If it's just, you go back 30 plus years and there isn't the online, you can't just look somebody up so easily. But I think for me, and it's a common theme on this show, is it feels, women's soccer is a bit, in as much as St. Louis is the soccer capital of the United States, and I agree, it's a bit unsung on the women's side in terms of its proper due.
Yeah, well, when I was in high school, they didn't have girls soccer, so
yeah, okay, so let's go lead in with that.
Yeah, so
how did you get started then?
We just played select.
Okay. So club was your what? Now it's club, right? But I do remember back when it was select because you got selected.
I played for UMSL, yeah.
So where did that start for you? So no CYC then for you?
A little CYC.
Who? Right. Who was it?
Gosh, I can't remember the team anymore. Just the grade school teams.
Okay, North County, South County.
North.
Okay, so you're a North County girl. Okay.
But sometimes we would get together, a couple parishes would get together and combine a team.
Yeah.
So I can't really remember what was the name of the team, but played the CYC and then the select teams.
All right, so then who was your first select team? What were the names back then?
Those were girls from high school that, I don't know if a lot of them went on to play.
Yeah.
Maureen Lee, Maureen McVeigh.
Yeah, who is looking for a referral from Maureen McVeigh. I'll take it.
Right. And Arlene Allmeyer played, I can't remember back then. That was so long ago. Sometimes we played indoor at Dellwood, too.
Oh, Dellwood. Yeah.
They had an indoor.
There.
Yeah.
Did Jamestown have a tournament, too, back then in the winter?
Right. We would play there, too.
I think it was a winter tournament.
Yeah, we'd even play on a co-ed.
Of course. Yeah. And of course, I think most of us probably played at some point, even south for what was Concord. Now they're called Veta locations. Right. But it was always, do you have a game at Concord?
You just kind of played all over.
Wherever you could get it.
Yeah.
So then select, you don't remember the teams? I was wondering if it's was it JB Marine? Wasn't it probably around then?
We were on the Bush team then.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in that part of it, do you remember rivals back then? Who would have been clubs you competed against?
Gosh, that's so long ago. I played on so many teams, so sometimes I was playing against friends or with friends. So
yeah, is it more fun to play with?
Yeah, I would say.
And there's a lot more at stake when you play against. Nobody wants to lose to a friend.
No, right.
So then I know you go on your way, and I was looking. I had already seen your profile. I had maybe a time even before this podcast where maybe perhaps being to one of many St. Louis Soccer Hall of Fame dinners. They do a great job of seeing all the recognitions many times from men who I knew either because they coached me or friends or were involved in the girls' game at the time. But of course, I did some counting one night and added up the males and added up the females and went, whoa. And at that time, I'm like, there's less than 10%. There's not even 10% of this crew. And I know, again, the Title IX made a lot more happen, and not right away. It took 8 years for the government to say enforce Title IX. It was kind of an option, nice to do. And when people didn't do, it does take time for participation to catch up when the men's games got 75 years on you. But I did have that moment. And I remember looking back and seeing your profile and going back and being like, were you in the first inductee? Into this for woman inductee in the St. Louis Hall of Fame?
Oh no, there was some girls before me.
Was Ruth already then in there?
I think she went in after.
Ruthie after the Gedemeyers. I bet Joan.
They went in before.
Gedemeyers before. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then I look on here. I've got so many tabs open on my computer. I make this mistake every time, and I think this will be helpful, and it's not, because I, again, have too many. I have a picture. I don't know if you can see it on my computer. I pulled up an UMSL.
An old UMSL picture.
I love this. Yeah. Has talks about 1981, coached by Ken Hudson, their first intercollegiate women's soccer team, burst onto the scene, 1981. I was in first grade. I love this. But we'll go by the fact that what I would have loved more is to know that there was some cool big girl team, right? Like when you're a little girl, anything a big girl does is cool to know and to be able to maybe go see a game. But it just wasn't something that was really accessible for my dad to find out about, or my mom. But I look at this team and just read about it, that you had, a school record of 16 straight wins, including a 15-game undefeated regular season. You had scored the opponents 92-6. Crazy. Finished with these great records. And even at one point in time, it said UMSL ranked 5th, and by the end of the regular season, ranked 2nd behind the University of North Carolina. Yeah. And now you look at what a powerhouse North Carolina became. Right. How does something like a factoid like that hit you?
That was really neat. And
did you know it was cool at the time?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was neat. And we played North Carolina in Central Florida and beat them 1-0.
There it is. Jen and Gedemeyer. There you go.
But then we get to the Final Four and we couldn't finish. So.
I will tell you, I had Anson Dorrance on, of course.
Seen that.
And I did make sure that was a question. He's nobody likes to lose, but gave the props.
Yeah.
To call that out. And Ruth Harker, of course, wanted, to make sure he was aware of that too.
Oh, funny.
In the meantime, she and Linda Gancitano from Florida are still arguing about who beat who back then. So I find that that's always a good thing. But I take a look, and if anybody's listening to this, just look up UMSL 1981 women's soccer, and you can find this. But I just am looking at shin guards, and the socks look normal, other than the shin guards were bigger. Kids tend to wear smaller shin guards now. And I'm looking at the shorts and the shirt with that banner kind of across the sash, and that's probably 100% polyester. Maybe not even cotton, and certainly there was no performance wear back there.
Right.
Were those your uniforms, or were those hand-me-downs?
Probably hand-me-downs.
Probably. I want to say that Gedemeyer's told me at one point in time, I think lacrosse might have. Something like that.
There was a team that might have. They dropped and then let us go up.
But when I look at this, I'm reminding myself, hey, Jen, to myself, be sure you bookmark this tab, because I'm looking at, I don't know who's all still around and here and those kinds of things. Like when Debbie Washburn's team went in, they were missing a couple of players that had passed on. When I look at names, Peggy Keogh, Maureen Lee, is that McVeigh now? Is that Maureen? Sue Paul, Cindy Scher, Cindy Dybel?
Yes.
Janine Basile, Kelly Farley, Mary Rose Stites, I'm guessing, the Gedemeyers, of course, Therese Klaus. There's a Karen Gedemeyer in there, too.
Yeah, they were all good players.
There's you, Tammy Long, and then that Patty Kelly was amongst the ranks there. And you just look at that and I go, this is easy for me. I'm like, I could probably get 10 podcasts out of this. It's just, again, it's not for it's not for the fact that we didn't have the plethora of players, but of course the ability, even Debbie just trying to track down everybody on her team, wanting to get them all at the St. Louis Soccer Hall of Fame if they could. And she's like, oh my gosh, it was kind of a nightmare just trying to, not everybody had been able to stay connected the way it's so easy to stay connected now.
Right. Yeah.
So as I come and talk to you about this, and as I reached out to you because of John Schneider and introduced myself on text, how did that hit you? I mean, I understand, and I feel the same way in my age group, that many of us who played, just after you get done playing, you just had to move on with it. Like life moved. You didn't, not a lot of, there wasn't this kind of recognition. There wasn't this Hall of Fame for us. You just moved on, and it was something that you did. Maybe your kids know about it. They heard kind of a story. Maybe depending on your age, if you played like that older women's team, some of them had kids. You may have drugged them along to soccer games. I definitely have. But it's just a little harder thing to track everybody down.
Yeah, I haven't talked to probably any of the players in a long, long time. But, and like you said, everybody gets so busy.
Yeah. What I do love, though, occasionally is when out of this podcast is when it gets shared out. Somebody inevitably, because soccer does connect. It's there's probably 4 Lindenwood Facebook groups I'm in for former players. When it gets shared out, though, you find that people are like, oh, right, and don't forget this person, and they find out sometimes it connects, and I love that about this podcast. So take me through, if you don't mind, your then entree into college ball, because again, growing up, not as much stuff was available. You grabbed, like you said, you played where you could. There was a tournament, you got in it. If there was field space, you did it. How did that happen for you with UMSL?
Well, we were all, playing in them leagues and against one another, and I guess Kenny started recruiting, and I was already going there anyways to get a business degree, and one by one, a lot of the select players went to UMSL, so we were able to put a good team together.
Was it like an official offer, or like, hey, just come to practice?
Well, that and trying to talk everybody into going there, yeah. We talked Peggy Keogh into transferring from SLU.
Oh, you stole her. Okay.
Yeah. Well, at the time, SLU didn't have a team.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's definitely the draw.
Right.
What would you say are your, whether it's from your younger days or your maybe later days playing or some of your favorite memories about the game?
Well, the competition was always good, and I was always on a good team. All them players were really good, and even when we were on select, we always made it to the nationals.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we just never did win it all. Came close all the time, but at least we were in the Final Four every year.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
So it was nice, even with college ball. And then when I went on to coach, that we got lucky there and won a couple titles, so that was nice.
Who were your when you think back, like I can think back to Michelle McCarthy, who's Michelle McCarthy Restovich now, and it was so much more fun playing with her than against her because I was a fast player and I'd see Michelle play and I'm like, I can beat her. I think in a straight out race I could beat her. So I think I can get that ball. And just no, you really can't because Michelle has sticky feet. It's like she had double-sided tape on both of her feet. So I remember Michelle. I'll remember maybe some overly aggressive players or the fast players, or sometimes you remember the loud players, the ones that you were afraid of, or then you played with and you were like, this is so much better. Who comes to mind for you? And who was like the most physical? Who was like kind of face up against her?
No, Terry Schuler and Chris Gettiger were physical.
Yeah.
And feel like, again, we just had fun, and the players were all really good, so it was good to be, nice to be on a team with a lot of talent.
Yeah. Where did you play on the field?
I was a forward.
Forward. So I'm thinking speed probably was in. It's a lot of times back then, so you put a lot of your speed right in the very front of the field. For me, play a ball into space and let me run after it.
Yeah.
Is that you stay that for your most of your career? A lot of kids will end up move around anymore, but sometimes...
Mostly I stayed up top. Little midfield, not much.
Now, in your UMSL days, how much travel was involved? Do you recall? And what did that process look like for you? And because I'm thinking of nowadays with teams and the way colleges are set up, and there's a lot of times buses, or there's this really formal process. When I was at Lindenwood, and this is circa 1992 to 1995, I think would have been my last year before graduating in 96. And, we just hopped into 2 white vans. That's all we had.
That was real simple, right? Most games were local until you started playing in the playoffs and then winning. Yeah, sometimes it was bus, sometimes it was flying, but it wasn't a lot. Yeah. Who do you know who would have been your longest trip? Opponent? Going to North Carolina, so playing down there in Central Florida. Mm-hmm.
Okay, but that's not a bad trip to have, right?
No, those were nice.
When it comes to the college opponent, was UNC at the time the hardest one for UMSL?
Yes.
And what made them so? So, every city, right, if it starts to have soccer, it develops a certain kind of soccer. I would say that my judgment of things from at least back in my days playing, and then back, I'm thinking maybe your days in playing too, and just talking to even national players like Michelle Akers, that kids now, my daughter at my age is at 16 is more skilled of a player than I ever was because of the kind of training they get. My 9-year-old daughter is probably more skilled than I was. Those are some of the biggest differences that maybe stand out to me. What made St. Louis women's soccer the style? What was it at the time? Is there something you can put your finger on?
At the time we just were, raw talent.
I feel like it was athletic too.
Right.
If you were athletic, you could run or either fast for a long time. You could, be coordinated enough to kick a ball, and also just be willing to work really hard.
Right. But now, like you said, the training today is so much different.
It is.
Better. Yeah.
And it's better, but I wonder sometime too if there's with opportunity, which is exactly what I'm sure if I felt this way, I'm going to guess you felt this way, is we just didn't always have the same resources that the boys did, or field availability, or uniforms. Maybe you got it from a lacrosse team.
Or the resources that they have today.
And then, and so now we've we've got it. Like it's there, it's coming. But then I see, to date, neither of my daughters have gotten hand-me-downs from a boys team. To date, nobody's gotten booted off their field because it does happen occasionally in clubs or even pro where, the women's team gets booted for a men's practice. But you're seeing so much more opportunity, and it makes me wonder, though, if when you see women play, and I think it's mostly still this way this day. There's a funny reel that I shared with my husband from Instagram, and it shows two women players. It's probably Lindsey Horan from the U.S. Women's National Team and another player. And I'm telling you, Karen, they went into a shoulder tackle that I swear it looked like they both hit their heads. They both went to the ground, the ball out of bounds. They totally fouled each other. Nobody complained about it. They just got up, threw the ball in, and went on with their play. Does that sound familiar?
Yes. Yeah.
There was none of this rolling around nonsense.
Right. And then getting up and playing again.
And I feel like, you tell me what you think, but I feel like from my days, I couldn't afford to show weakness on the field. Some of it was for myself, but some of it was also for any boy or man that was around, like, to use that as an excuse for why girls or women shouldn't play. So we played through blood. I remember tearing my MCL, and I stayed on the field, scored a goal with my header, and went out, and I was in 9th grade in high school.
Well, I don't know how you did that.
Well, that was just pure stubbornness because I was so mad. I'd already missed 3 times. I'm like, I got to do this, but I couldn't kick it anymore, and then we went to the hospital.
Oh, wow.
So probably more stupidity than anything else. But I feel like there was a level of grit to the games you and I probably played in that I sometimes wonder if maybe gets a little lost on our kids. And I'm thinking of my daughters right now because they don't have those adversities to face in terms of nobody wanting to watch you play or not having. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even from when I started coaching, when we were in the playoffs and that, the stands were packed versus when we were playing back in the day. You're right. You didn't have a whole lot of people there at the games.
Yeah, and it was one of those things, too, where even at Lindenwood, I feel like it was the first time that I had ever played in the same season as the other side of the game, the boys or the men. Because in Missouri high school soccer, as we know, boys play in the fall, girls play in the spring, and I played softball, so it worked out nicely for me. I mean, I did spring in the opposite. But I find that, that kind of a difference, I didn't realize that Missouri is, I think, one of maybe 6 or 7 states, I feel like that might be about it, sorry if I got that wrong, that don't have their boys and girls in high school play at the same time. Florida does it. And of course they play in the winter because you can in Florida. And I know it's a hard thing, but it makes me wonder. I remember, taking the field and like either the guys were just coming on or the guys were just coming off. And it was so weird to me that the men's team was training too. Did you have that at the same time at UMSL?
At UMSL, yeah.
It was the same time.
Yeah, we would just practice different times.
Yeah.
So, of course, they would go first and we'd go second.
Of course they'd go first. And on there, I will say there was one night, too, it was actually fun. Like, I would say the trip we took to Oklahoma together, not fun because the bus lost its air conditioning. It was a terrible trip and everybody stunk. And I think we both did not perform well. So I think we were all in trouble. Tim Champion and Carl Hutter were not happy coaches with us at the time. But I think, too, what we were talking about there with playing at the same time, that there was a camaraderie, though, whether it was, hey, you guys didn't pick up all your balls or whether it looks like, or every once in a while, because Lindenwood had a terrible practice field. It wasn't the campus it is now. And if my coach was like, we're not going on the practice field because you guys are going to turn your ankle, we would split the AstroTurf field at Hunter Stadium, I think it is, and split that with the men, each of us getting half a field. But, you can run patterns.
Yeah.
And I think the highlight, though, was one night, I don't remember who our opponent was. Maybe it was Rockhurst. I don't remember. But if we did have a double where we were playing the same opponent as them, usually the women played first, right? We were kind of the opening game and the men played second. But there was a night it got reversed. I don't remember why. And boy, did we think we were big shit. Because we got like the 7 p.m. game when more people came. And it was a really cool feeling.
Nice. Yeah.
And to not kind of be the lead-in or get maybe displaced might be a side dish.
Yeah.
We're here at Foods, and not an appetizer, the main course.
Well, it's nice to go to games now and see the crowds.
Yeah. What's your favorite? Do you like also like slew ball, or gosh, you probably grew up on Soccer Park just like I did.
Right. Yeah.
The games that were there at times,
and the fields and the facilities. I'm just in all of that when you go.
Yeah. So,
go somewhere to see something. It's like, oh my God, look how nice this is.
Yeah. So it's got to then strike you, I would imagine, as it has even, talking with Ruth Harker of the 85 team and Michelle Akers, who played longer than a lot of them and, she lived the growth of the game. You can go back and talk about in 85, them having like a $10 in a per diem, which by the way, is still not enough money to have to eat everything you need to eat in a day in 1985. Kids, that's not enough. But knowing like how much has changed, she's lived it and going through it. And you must feel the same way. I know I do, looking back. And not only was I just at Energizer Park, right? Look at that stadium.
Right.
It's amazing. We're not putting soccer, a rectangle on a diamond at Busch Stadium, which those games were fun, but it's different. You look over at KC, not only do they have that, their women, KC Current, have their own stadium.
Yeah.
How does that hit you?
I know. That's unbelievable.
I have not been to a game yet. Have you?
No, I've seen it on TV.
Our St. Louis's own Alex Pfeiffer, got recruited, and it was just, I remember them putting, I could probably Instagram reel, when the ladies were first revealed their locker room. And I remember people my age and older going, locker room? What are you talking about?
Right.
Like half the time they weren't even open.
Right. It's come a long way.
And if you didn't want to go shower up after games, which we typically didn't want to do in college, we just wanted to get on with it, our poor coaches were stuck driving 2 white vans with very stinky soccer players. And he's like, leave your shin guards on. That's disgusting. Yeah. When did your playing days end? Would you say like you got through the college and
I played for a while, and then I just got busy, with the work and the restaurant and getting married. And I was also coaching at Flo Valley. So,
I was just going to get there. I have that pulled up too. I think it's from the NJCAA, kind of wrote you up, the National Junior College. But that, you're Rosati Kane, was that where you
graduated?
You graduated from Rosati Kane. And it just kind of goes on then to, it's like one of those stories where the game, if you love the game, even back when there were fewer opportunities, you could sometimes find a way to what made you keep a finger hold on soccer?
Well, when I was playing, even when I was younger, high school and early years of college, I was coaching the kids in the neighborhood. Then I went on to help with some Coca-Cola teams and select. And then those girls were all like 11 or 12. And when they turned 18, I talked them all into coming to Flo.
Flo Valley, they're there. And you were breaking records beyond that. I know you were like a leading goal scorer, which of course as forwards we should be, but they got to put the ball in the back of the net. Leading goal scorer yourself over at UMSL, and then you take it to the college circuit and run there. And it says, during your dominant run as head coach, you were also women's Soccer Coaches Hall of Fame inductee. I think you're Coach of the Year a few times. Mm-hmm. Congratulations. You hear of those honors now a little bit more easily than you could come by back then, I think.
Yeah. No, we just put together a good team, plus with the help of John Schneider, and my husband, Pat Baker, was the goalie coach. It just all gelled, and dream come true. Yeah. We ended up winning the national title a couple of years in a row.
Yeah, 3 of them, I think, right? Uh-huh. And then 2 NJCAA Championships, runner-up, and then first and youngest female to receive not only 1, but 2 NJCAA Coach of the Year awards.
Yeah.
That had to feel... How'd you feel about that at the time?
It was nice.
You're normally coaching against men, I would say, right? 9 times out of 10.
No, it was nice. I was just happy for the players, and they were all so talented and good, and everybody gelled and got along, and it was really neat to win, especially as a player, getting so close and never clinching at all.
Yeah, right. I know how that feels.
It was neat to finally win, and then I went on to, in the spring, I would help Incarnate Word Academy, too, so that was neat, winning some state title games.
Do you ever do like me? I only coached through the youth level, but I remember, even in my officiating experience, I did, my dad thought it was a great way to earn money. I umpired softball and officiated soccer. No, I did not like people yelling at me for things I knew and they were wrong. And no, I didn't like, no, George, it was not fun to take this hobby up as we started dating. Like, well, we don't play golf. Do you want to referee together? And I thought, sure, that'll be fun. It wasn't, Karen. It was not fun.
No, I don't think I'd want to be a ref.
I ran, and there's another person to get on. I ran in one of my first games. He was in the middle, which George was mostly in his pro career. He's an AR. But he was in the middle. We were at UMSL, and Karen Swanner. No, George was not. We did one at UMSL, and I did another one. We did one together, and that was the whole point. By the way, damn it, was supposed to be fun to do together. And now I started getting assigning with all these different people. I'm like, this is not what I wanted. But one person, and she's a great referee, Karen Swanner, always ran a reverse diagonal. So as an AR, and I did not want to do the middle. You used to going from half field line. If you're facing into the field, you run to your right, on either side. Well, for her, you had to run to your left. And because she was getting assessed, it's like my second game at UMSL, and I'm getting assessed. I'm like, I don't even want to do this anymore.
Oh, wow.
Did you ever referee?
No.
You're like, no.
I might have done some little kids' games, but no. That's not what I would want to do. Yeah.
So I definitely learned, some things. I'm like, well, it helps you understand the game better. And then later, as I got into my 20s, I coached just because Tim Champion was like, I got a friend who needs help, and they have a club team or select team. And I learned a lot as a coach. I feel like if I could have known some of those, and I'm not talking about tactics. I'm just talking about how you try to connect with the player and how you try to motivate them. And I don't know what kind of player you were, but I was very much in my head. Like if I made a mistake, I had a hard time getting over that. And I learned a lot. Did you find yourself learning more about the game in your coaching?
Oh, yeah. And dealing with each kid and
who's motivated in a completely different way.
You have to motivate them in different ways, different levels. Yeah.
What do you think you learned the most from your coaching? Besides winning titles.
Oh, wow. No, that was nice. Just being around the group and the parents and then the players and how they would gel together and get along, and just the competition, just everything about it. It was a nice experience.
Did you ever think like, okay, if I found sometimes the coaching taught me, and then I was thinking back to when I was a player, and I'm like, that would have been really helpful.
Right.
I don't know if my younger brain would have, accepted it, but to know some of these things like, oh, this is why my coach is making me do this over and over again.
Yes.
Because repetition, of course, is key.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, when you had players that were that good and we started winning, you do look back at all that and think, oh, God, I wished I had all this when I was playing.
So UMSL, comes to a close and kind of pick up. And then I know you, like most people, you pick up and you move on with life because maybe you want to have a family or you got to make money. And certainly women's soccer was... Look at all the investment too. Michelle Kang, who is investing like millions into women's soccer across the world. Did you ever even think that would be a thing back in the day?
It is so neat how far they've come. And even how United States is represented so greatly and as much as they've won.
Yeah. What do you find yourself tracking the game or on the women's side or?
I try to watch it as much as I can, but I'm just so busy here at the restaurants that I just keep moving. Because
like you said, life moved on. Right. And then, soccer player turns restaurateur.
Yeah, I always worked in the restaurant. So after I got married, I had to pick one or the other. It was getting too hard to be in two places at once. So
yeah. And so did you ever find too, because is it your dad or your grandfather was, I've got a couple tabs up here on my computer where, the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame, I think maybe had something.
That was my Uncle Tom.
That's your uncle. Okay. So, yeah.
He was a quarterback.
Soccer runs.
Yeah.
And so
he was football. Quarterback and captain at West Point.
Ah, okay.
And they did win the national title there. So,
what did he think of the soccer side of the family?
Oh, well, he got killed in the Korean War, so I never really got to meet him. But we do have the Tom Lombardo Football Foundation that we still are active in, and it's one of the biggest in the country that raises money for high school scholarships, and the luncheons are here once a month.
Yeah, I think I'm clicking on one right now. The National Football Foundation, I think, had a luncheon.
My cousins just got back from Korea.
There you are.
Yeah, they just named a stadium over there in honor of my Uncle Tom.
Wow. So they've got a football side, American football side, and then the rest of the world that calls soccer football side of the family, too, that kind of runs in there. Were there other soccer players in your family, or were you the only one?
No, I was the only one, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. My cousin played basketball at SLU, and my younger brother played a little soccer, and my older brother played football, So what
made it soccer for you at the time?
I played everything growing up. I don't know.
I just kid.
Yeah, and then getting into the select and really liking it and then going with it.
What'd you like about select at the time? It's different, right? Clubs are different now. Right. Now you got, at least when I was going through, probably was the same for you. You had one team per age group in a club. You didn't have, 8 teams deep and have your top team and your bottom team. You didn't have those things like it's many of these bigger clubs like Gallagher, Fuse, Missouri Rush. It was one team. It was. That was it. If you were playing Coke, you were playing a Coke of one team in your age group. That's it. And maybe they had other teams or not.
You're right. I think it's probably harder now to win and get through and get further than we did because there weren't as many teams.
Yeah.
So when we got to playoffs, maybe it was 1 or 2 games and then you were up at nationals. So
were you find I think one of the biggest curses and the jokes in a soccer family now. Of my 4 kids, 3 of them still play, and the running joke too is how many times we got to drive out to Kansas City or go to Memphis to face a St. Louis team in the final that we could have done just over at Soccer Park or Lou Fuse.
You're right. That happens because my kids played, and we're always traveling, right? Yes. And you'd be out of town, and it'd be 2 St. Louis teams in the finals.
You in league,
right? Yeah.
So did you guys have the same issue then? Because there weren't as many teams, so you were facing the same people over and over again
to get out of St. Louis. Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then so back then, I remember going to tournaments. My team in particular did a lot in Cincinnati. I don't know what it was about Cincinnati, but we went there a lot. I think another Ohio town had a bunch of tournaments, and we would do patches. I still have soccer patches. Was that
I remember those, yeah.
Where you traded patches after the game.
Right.
And it's like, I don't want to give you my patch because you kicked me.
Yeah.
But you traded patches at the end. It was cool to get somebody else's patch. I remember that sometimes people would sew them on jackets or put them places, but it seems to be a lost art in the game.
Yeah, that's gone now.
Yeah. I think for a while I heard there were pins, but I'm thinking those are probably more expensive to do. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I still have some patches from different, whether tournaments or the opponents that you played.
Right.
When you were traveling in club, do you find that you remember on-pitch experience on the field, or do a lot of your memories come from being off the field? Like being in the hotel room.
Oh, yeah.
We want to go to the pool.
Yeah.
Does our hotel have a pool?
Not
yes
the
or no?
ones we stayed in. And it was like play the game and get back, Yeah.
We don't want to stay the night.
Right.
And it's interesting to see my generation of parents, and I think, so I'm a Gen Xer, and some younger generations of parents don't always carpool the way my parents were, boomers. And I was the oldest of 4 kids, so there's no way they're going to get to all of my stuff all the time. So I could easily be left at Booter Park for an hour, Dad, waiting for practice because he had to go run, 3 other kids to practices. But yeah, we were one of those kind of things where, you had that element of, I lost track of what I was talking about. I just went off. I'm going to need to order food here, Karen, very soon.
We're going to feed you, yes.
Menu, please. But, thinking about the travel and carpooling, that's what it was, carpooling. I don't recall anybody really not carpooling at the time. I mean,
Everybody was so busy.
Is that how it was for you too?
Well, when we started playing select and that, we were old enough to drive. Because back then there wasn't girls soccer.
So you weren't going at this at like 10?
No. I didn't start playing until high school. But we didn't play for a high school team. We played for a select team.
Yeah. So you guys are getting yourself there pretty much to and from. What about tournaments, though? Were you going together then?
Yeah,
or your parents?
We would take vans.
Yeah.
The team would just all go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, who drew? Coaches probably drove?
Yeah, coaches drove.
So before, was Tom Hudson then your first coach at UMSL?
Yes. And I played for Champions. They were good.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's another Tim and Tom, right?
They were good, yeah.
All right, where was that at then?
We played some select teams, and I also played at Cardinal Newman one year with them.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And would you get coached by both of them at the same time?
Yes.
So, they look the same and they sound the same.
Yeah.
So, like, if they're yelling at you, you're getting what you should be doing in stereo.
Right. Yeah, they were good. Greg Rafferty coached us on some of them select teams.
Yeah, drop these names.
Yeah.
People like the name drops in St. Louis soccer. What else you got? What other coaches? What other names in the game?
Oh, God. Oh, Mr. Dybel, he coached us, too. And,
I think my coaches were, I think, back to the Mastercraft. That was the first club.
Oh, I remember that name.
I feel like they were only around for a year, but a lot of people played. It was the same colors as what UMSL had there. It's that yellow, red, McDonald's kind of colors. And for the second race, it was the same team, but they changed clubs. It was Kolping.
I remember those names. Abe Fitzgerald was one of my first coaches, too. Yeah.
Mine were like Dan Hackett, Ken Bomarito, Burley Denny, Mr. Schoner, and some of those. So, you just find, too, a lot of times I may not have been coached by somebody, but I've played with or against somebody who was, I feel like I have to think, was that person my coach? No, they weren't, but we faced off with them so many times.
Right.
What are other good, fun memories from your days? And whether playing or, you then became a soccer mom. Right?
Oh, yeah.
How'd that change it?
Well, what club ball's like now. I mean, you're just constantly going.
So what is that? So that's a great thing. What does that look like for you then, knowing, like, I don't know, I think we went to Booter and we always played on this one particular field and we just hoped that the grass was cut. And many times it was not. So you had to learn to kick the ball. Your coach is like, takes you out there and says, nope, that pass isn't going to make it. Kick it harder. Yeah. You were kicking the pass.
The kids had it easier today with the nice fields and facilities where we were playing on rocks and holes and dirt. And
what's the worst field you played on? I mean, I feel like Booter was probably when, especially if it had stormed and there was like standing rain. And then the question, you could tell a lot about teammates you didn't know by who went into the puddle of mud first.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, today it's nice what they have, and select and what the kids it's all set up and organized. It just seems like when we played, there wasn't a whole lot of organization.
Yeah, I think for the most part, if you came, it certainly wasn't for an hour warm-up. You might have warmed up, 15 or 20 minutes. That involved a jog, a hurdler stretch, which now they tell you don't do because it's bad for your knees, and passing a little, taking shots. Because, every practice, what are two things you want to do as a kid? Scrimmage and take shots.
Yeah.
And then you go play the game.
Right.
So when you look at it now, or when your kids were playing, were the complexes as big as they are now? Like, you've got St. Louis Development Academy has a complex, Sportport, soccer parks bigger.
They played at all of those. Yeah, it was nice. And it wasn't like when our kids are playing or when they did play, it wasn't one nice facility. They're all nice.
Yeah.
And there's so many different tournaments that they can play in.
Yeah, I will say that the tournament thing, and maybe it makes me feel both. I have a kid who played softball and a kid who played baseball, and it makes me feel like the way baseball and softball parents kind of have to do it, on a tournament. Back when we did it, right? Unless, I don't know how many local honest tournaments we did in St. Louis. As a kid in club or select ball, I would say that the most of my memories come from the travel tournaments, right? Where you're going and you're probably we didn't carpool as teams when we were young, but our parents did. So like my mom never, or dad never just usually took me on a trip by myself. We carpooled with another parent and player.
Right.
That it's just one way to cut costs, because I think it was so, it costs more nowadays, but I remember my parents being shocked at the time, and we made pizzas. Like we did all those, we sold stuff. We were like little Amway kids. But with, just being kind of shocked at the extra expenses to the uniforms, the cool bags we had, and, having to plan for gas and a hotel room, which, normally, unless you have parents who travel on a regular basis or you travel for vacation, most of us don't grow up doing.
No.
Soccer got us out.
I think some of the soccer tournaments just became your vacation.
They did. We still do. Sometimes we did a Gulf Shores one this past one. I'm like, I can't believe we're doing 3v3 soccer for 8-year-olds. I would never normally pay for this, but it's in Gulf Shores, so we're going to make a weekend.
Right. Yeah.
It is a good one.
Right.
Sometimes to do that.
Right.
So how many kids do you have, and how many played soccer?
2 boys. Brendan's 27 and Joey's 20.
Okay, so just a little bit older than my Georgie.
Right.
So were you the soccer mom that sat back, or were you in
No.
You played the game.
No,
like, hey,
I didn't
this
say
is not
anything.
how you got to do it.
No, we just sat back and watched.
Did they both play forward like yourself?
No, the older one was a goalie, and the younger one was a forward. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, opposite sides of the field, right?
Right.
The forward can shoot on the goalie at home.
Right.
Take that.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite memories from then? Then, I'm thinking of just, I think about times when I'm playing. I was thinking about times I like fewer of the memories from refereeing. Thank you very much. But coaching, and then, then becoming a soccer parent changed again, because now I have to figure out, how am I going to interact with this game with my kid? And I'm still, at least in my brain, fairly competitive. I don't know that I sat back as much as I should have, Karen.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we did. No, they enjoyed it, and it was fun. They have a lot of friends and met a lot of people, and they're still in contact with a lot of them. And we've made friends with the parents.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was nice traveling and them playing, and they enjoyed it. So,
did your boys know that you were a badass on the field too?
Yeah.
Did you ever just try to take any shots on them, or be like, listen?
No.
You're like, I'm not going to embarrass you.
Right.
That's what I tell my kids. I would, but I would embarrass you. And my 16-year-old or my 9-year-old girl are like, they're both pretty fast too. They're like, are we faster than you? I'm like, you'll never know. Because I can't race you now. I'm 51.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, so the growth of the game, of course, and the opportunities. Do you still find that soccer, whether it's going to Energizer Park or you're hosting events, it seems like the game still calls to you? Or I'm calling you for a podcast. The game calls to you in one way or another.
Yeah, you're right, because that was a long time ago when I played and coached, actually. So, yeah, it's neat to see how it's evolved, and going back and meeting people, or sometimes people will come in for dinner that I hadn't seen in years. So
remind me here, I'm on the, having the Hall of Fame dinner in February. I will tell you, I been there before. I was there when George got in, and we'd just gone there because it's a nice. Jim Leaker and the organization does a great job of really taking a nice venue and a nice ceremony. It was awesome that in February, I think they reached over 1,000 people, which was up, their highest at least since COVID. I know COVID really hurt kind of any events like that, and then you have to do them virtually. That's no fun. Do you find yourself ever going back since your induction?
Oh, yeah. We go back every once in a while.
Nice.
No, it's really nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
So talk to me. What year was your induction? Remind me. And how did it feel? Because you were one of very few. Yeah. And kind of still. I mean, we took a picture. I had a table of women who, some of them have green jackets like yourself. You'll have to come with my table next year. You want to go? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to get 2 tables. Jim, I'm going to get 2 tables. Heads up. And I had Ruth there and had the Gettemeyers were there, which was fun. And it was probably good. They put us in the back. the bar was real close to us, and perhaps we got a little rowdy. But we definitely, wanted to give that extra oomph for a couple of women winning in the St. Louis Soccer Hall of Fame, and of course, Debbie Washburn's team.
That was nice. Yeah,
getting that. And just talking with Mary Carpenter at halftime at the City game from that team, how much just having that nod, that recognition of, we see you, we know what you did. It was great. I hit my microphone. And for me, Karen, I want my kids to know your name. Like, I want my girls to be like, yes. And by the way, I just didn't play. There were people before me who played that have been pioneering this game for you. What did that feel like, getting the ask?
That was very nice. It was an honor.
What year was that again? 2016?
16,
And is that Nancy laying with you, I think, at the same time?
Yes.
Yeah. So she's another candidate.
Yeah, she was a good player.
Yeah. And referee, I think. She did quite a bit in the referee realm.
She went on to do more.
But that was really, you start to see it more now. And I know the Hall of Fame is currently meeting about probably what will, considering what their next inductee class will be, because it does take a lot of time to plan that. As time goes on, I wouldn't mind seeing half and half. I wouldn't mind seeing, there's a lot of women, as I talked to yourself, who you did get picked and honored. I'm glad there are others that, certainly meet the criteria. Sometimes, again, we're hard to find.
I agree. I think there'll be more and more getting in.
Yeah. But how did that come down that day? Did you get a phone call? Did you get a certificate in the mail?
Yeah, I got a phone call. And no, it was nice. There was always a customer here, Jack Lyons, that was in the Hall of Fame. And he was always trying to get me in. And, I grew up by him. And it just eventually happened. And, it was just a great honor. But I got in because we won, and I had a lot of good players playing there, and I had...
Well, come on. You had, back-to-back championships. You coached the year. You, were a lead goal scorer at the time when you played.
Had a lot of help, with the other coaches as well, John Schneider and my husband, Pat Baker. So, and the players were really good, and it just, like I said, it came together, and we all gelled.
Get the nod, though. I think
it was
sometimes,
a great honor.
For Debbie and her team, they were a little sad that for them it came a little bit late. A couple people were missing. Or for my coach Debbie, who was Debbie Washburn, Debbie Kem back in those days. But her husband Russ was a fixture. He wasn't my dad, but he might as well have been, because he came to all of her games that she also coached.
Yeah, I thought that was really neat that they got acknowledged this past year.
Yeah, we were really loud in the back. I don't know. You'll have to come and be part of the loud tables. It'll be fun.
Right.
How you have customers that come through here in Lombardo's. How do you find soccer makes its way in here? I feel like, it already sounds like you talk to probably regular customers.
Oh, yeah.
You find people talking about city or, you have now girls being called up to the U.S. Youth National Team, and some of them are from St. Louis. There's all these great things happening.
It is really neat. And with our other restaurant being downtown, my brother runs that, Lombardo's Trattoria.
You got Carmine Steakhouse as well.
My other brother runs it. That's named after my dad. And but Lombardo's Trattoria is right by the stadium, and my brothers can't believe how busy they are with the soccer.
I bet.
Yeah, it's been nice.
Yeah, it's got to be an uptick in business, right?
And then out here, we do get a lot of the traveling teams, because Creve Coeur. Scott Gallagher, Lou Fuse isn't far from here.
Yeah.
So sometimes we'll host a lot of teams here for dinner.
Let's say that makes a lot of sense.
It does make full circle. I'm like, oh my gosh, we used to have to do that ourselves, but yeah.
What do you think is the biggest? You probably need more than one, but I'm thinking 2, 3 changes you've seen in the game of soccer, either overall or for opportunities for girls and women. Take your pick. But we were there again with barely uniforms to now it's become kind of a beast.
Well, there's a pro league, and
we
World
have
Cup,
and and World Cup's
USA
coming.
National team, and just and it's all televised now. I mean, you can
turn on your TV and watch
and watch a game.
Do you get requests for here? I don't know if we're in a side, by the way, a really nice dining room. I don't know if you have TVs up.
TVs in the other rooms.
You get requests get City Game
we'll
on.
Get them on. Yeah. Then I got to go to Apple and try to figure that out.
Join the club.
Yeah, yeah.
My kids always ask a young person, is what I say.
Right. I do ask my son here, get this on for me. So.
Is it the growth then, or anything else? Like sometimes, for example, I chuckle a little bit because at City's last game against Union Omaha, that's an open cup, and we had replays in the stadium, but there is no VAR, right? There is no video assistant referee who's looking at every angle to find out if it was a handball. And City, of course, this year being on the wrong side of 2 offside calls. Turns out apparently they were right, but they were really they were something that probably back in our days of playing, you would have gotten the call the way it wouldn't have been sliced and diced.
It was seen.
So fine.
Yeah.
That's why I almost think that sometimes the game in its pureness of whether a referee thinks they see something and they react to it, and or a player does something, we analyze it so much now, even down to the college level. Like you can get college ball, which is awesome, by the way, because if you can go see our SLU team play, you just go on TV and watch them and Google on YouTube. But sometimes I wonder if the lack of having certain analytical tools just allowed us to play freer. Let the game just to happen.
Right.
It's like, well, it was a really bad tackle, but both people got up, so on we go.
Yeah, just keep playing.
We don't have to replay and try to find the weird angle that it hit a fingertip.
Yeah.
And then call it back for a penalty kick.
Right.
Man, the number of times I could have maybe drawn a penalty with VAR would have been good as a forward, right?
Could have won more, scored more. Yeah.
What favorite memories from the game for you overall?
Just the competition was really neat.
So you're a competitive person. Are you competitive at if you're competitive soccer, I don't like to lose at Uno.
Yeah, right.
Or Candyland.
Just being able to go places and see different cities and play in them, and the competition, and just winning those games and being in those big games, traveling, it was really nice.
Yeah. What do you think's next? I mean, in the game, we've got a pro men's team here. Do you think St. Louis? It's a loaded question because I think it's yes, and I feel like we would have some automatic natural rival right across the state. Like, wouldn't it be great for St. Louis to also get a pro women's team?
Maybe, yeah.
I mean, we've got WPSL, and that's a little bit of a lower kind of echelon. But to have a team come, and at this point anyway, I don't really care if you share Energizer Park.
Right.
Unless you constantly see the women's team getting booted off the field. That would not make me happy. But I feel like in terms of a fan base, I've got 2 girls that would go to games.
Right. In the league, all of it across the country is just getting better and better. So I'm sure there's room for expansion.
Yeah, and the USL, I think, also expanding their league to add women to it. And for me, it's just a no-brainer. For me, I feel like there's a lot of surprise amongst many. They're usually men, but even some, like my mom, I think would be surprised as like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. But I'm like, I always knew the audience was there. Like I as growing up as a girl who, I pretended to be Ozzie Smith and do the round off, back handspring. But I was never going to be Ozzie Smith. I'm not going to play baseball. Now baseball's opening up for girls, but not back then. All the athletes that I was able to admire, unless you were looking at the Olympics, maybe for gymnastics or swimming, you were not able to easily, unless your dad knew, to take you to Soccer Park because Michelle Akers was playing there, and my dad did not know that. I didn't have women to look up to. And as I've grown up, I think I've always been kind of aware that was a missing piece in my life.
I know, and I just can't believe it when you see like how successful the women's have done in World Cup and all that, and I just think they got so much more to look up to.
Yeah,
young kids.
And if you think about just pure marketing, I mean, you own a business, you know how important marketing and sales are. I feel like it's one of the last real growth markets when it comes to sports. When you think about men's soccer, I mean, it's great. The MLS is growing. We're going to have World Cup here, the men's world side of the World Cup in 2026. More the better. Like, I'm happy about that. But let's face it, men's soccer for at least 100 years has had a pretty standard audience. And the U.S., like I said, it's growing, but I think the truest growth market is the women's side of almost any sport.
Yeah, you're right.
Because not only is my little girls like it, but the little girl in me is like, yes, I will admire this player that's half my age and I could never, compete against because I didn't have anybody.
Right.
Except one, I had Michelle Akers only because a boy brought Soccer America magazine to school and she was on the cover. And I had never seen something like that before. And I was like, I don't know who that is, but I have deciding she's awesome. Turns out I was right. And I'm going to decide to admire whatever she's good at.
Yeah.
Whatever I can find out.
There's a lot for the girls to look up to now, that's for sure.
And the other side I think I find too, I don't know how you feel about this, and I think our guys at St. Louis City SC do a great job of trying to be role models and connecting with kids after the games, but they find that at least on social media and also mentoring and like connecting with fans, that the women's side of the game does a really good job at not only being seen by their fans, but making that little girl or little boy feel seen in the crowd. I think the women have an innate ability to connect with their audience, especially kids.
Yeah, that's really nice. I'm just so glad that the stadium was built here in St. Louis, and they've just done a great job with it.
Yeah. What do you predict? I feel like I need to use your wisdom. I've got a little bit, not enough apparently, according to my kids. But what do you think the next thing is? Just more leagues and growth? I mean, when I look at St. Louis City, they have an academy program. You can play high school soccer in St. Louis. You can play club soccer in St. Louis. Lots of options. And if you're at a certain level and you get selected, you're now in the academy, which is awesome, by the way, because now you're not paying thousands of dollars for your club program because now select soccer is a lot more expensive. Told you, Dad. Got worse. But I feel like on the women's side of it, we're not quite there. We have college, right? My daughter is, waiting to get recruitable herself. We have club, we have, of course, CYC still around, but we don't have that, academy structure per se that is linked to a club team. Even throughout the United States, and I'm going to put, quote, yet. I feel like that could be a growth area.
Oh, I agree with you. I'm sure it's coming. I mean, just look at the women's basketball and all that as well.
Yeah.
Everything is growing.
Yeah. Caitlin Clark, March Madness.
And then everybody's probably going to follow Kansas City with the women's stadium.
Yeah. And then imagine, they say, nothing's better for the growth for any team is to have a rival team. And certainly St. Louis City has created a rival in Sporting Kansas City. And, wouldn't that be great to give KC Current a rival?
With the women.
Yeah. And then, you build that fun. I don't know what it is about a rivalry. Do you remember any rivalry games? Like I remember on the club side, it didn't seem to matter. Like the tough teams for us was either Norco, maybe a Bush at the time when they had teams, always JB Marine because they were really good.
Always good.
Always good. Doesn't matter the age group. But you always had that. Who were yours?
Yeah, and it was always North versus South. So that was
Did you play in those games?
Yeah.
You got selected for that?
Yeah.
That was always fun.
Right.
And you felt like it was World Cup, because it wasn't on Soccer Park #1.
Right. Yeah.
And you get to the stadium, and that was our city park at the time. That was our place to be. I mean, if your game was on Soccer Park #1, you were like, yeah, bring the cameras. I'm important.
Yeah, I just think the growth of all the sports has just changed so much over the years. So a lot more opportunity for everybody.
Yeah. I feel like, too, St. Louis is a sports town. We certainly don't like when our teams aren't winning. But we do, as a general town, like to spend our weekends. Well, I don't know if we always I mean, sometimes when I'm in like back-to-back 8 soccer games on a weekend, maybe that's of my kids. I love them, but maybe I don't want to spend all my weekend doing that. But on the pro side of it, to be able to go to Cardinals baseball, to go to city games, to do that is very much one of the things on people's list. I mean, I went to Cardinal games growing up as a girl. I'm sure you did too.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
And it's just nice that the stadiums are selling out too.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So what's next then? What's next in the soccer world for Karen Lombardo? And because your sons are a little bit older, they're done playing.
They're done playing. Yeah.
But,
Nothing. Just
grandkids playing?
not yet.
Not yet.
No. Yeah.
Is it too little?
I don't have any grandchildren
okay,
yet.
Grandchildren. So got it. I didn't know if there was anybody or nieces and nephews also that played as well.
Yeah. My one niece is still playing. She plays at Lindbergh. So.
Okay. So you go out for a high school game every once in a while?
I try to watch her play every once in a while.
Yeah. And even that side of the game, I mean, look at I remember I found not too long ago, I think I had a box, my mom probably, she's still in the process of going, this box is yours, get it out of my house. And it's usually newspaper clippings or old trophies one was from Soccer World West, if you remember that, from Fenton. Fenton had an indoor soccer place, Soccer World. But, you think of those memories in the game and those things that come up of what you do and where it's come to now. It's just quite crazy. Do you have a bunch of newspaper clippings?
Well, yeah. My mom kept all of that.
Did.
Sure. There's books down in a box somewhere in the
and probably some
basement.
Polaroid photos because
right.
the kids think the vintage stuff is cool now.
Right.
My little girl sometimes will bring home one of those, instant Polaroids where they can do the picture and they're like, and now you got to go get it developed. I'm like, yes, this is the way we did things.
Right. Yeah.
We didn't have a phone to take the picture on.
Yeah. Now just push a button.
Yeah, just push a button and then retake it if you don't like it. Just like that, and you're not wasting any film. But I think too, later today, I'll be interviewing, the day we're recording, one of high school's best 11. So, it's awesome to see the St. Louis Champions League in high school soccer kind of create a little bit more internal competition among the high schools, as if we didn't need more competition between high schools in St. Louis, and then create a best 11 where they're recognizing like the top 11 players for that week.
Yeah, that's nice.
I mean, I remember just getting I think my name, I don't even know, the article wasn't even about me, but my name got in there. And I think my mom has 10 copies of that article.
Oh, wow.
Of the Post-Dispatch, all cut out, probably yellowed. And now you have a chance to
get on that every week.
With
the customer
your picture.
Just sent me that. Their granddaughter made it a couple of weeks ago. So that was really neat.
And how exciting. The kids get excited. The parents get excited.
Yeah, it was really nice.
Yeah, to have that kind of a thing. And just every year it seems to give a little bit more in terms of, and I think that's, at least what you and I grew up in, you probably more so than me, was just a time where you did play for the love of the game. So I wouldn't trade that for anything, but occasionally it would have been nice to get a little recognition especially if you had worked really hard and were having a great season, or you're leading goal scorer for probably forever. Would have been nice to have a little bit more of that.
Oh, no, that's okay.
No, it's not, Karen. We like it now.
Yeah.
I would love to see, my face on a best 11, I would have just thought that was great.
Yeah, that's nice. Like I said, the opportunity today is tenfold from when we played, and it's great to see that story that they have it.
Yeah, that you have a customer coming in showing you that.
Oh, yeah. They're like, here, you would probably enjoy this. And they sent it. Our granddaughter made best 11. I'm like, I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah,
so that was nice.
That's the brainchild of Dave Ehrenberg over at Ladue High School.
What a great honor.
Yeah, great and cool. And just more to come. And I think that's one of the things, too, is that, when we, grow the game, it gets harder, right? Even looking at high school, there's a lot of pressure. I'm one of them putting pressure on Misha to, maybe move the girls to play in a fall, because it's really hard to pick up the back end. Your club season culminates in, let's say, call it June, July, depending on which league you're in. And to come out of high school ball, which I'm not digging, don't yell at me, Dave, don't yell at me, anybody else. I'm not digging high school ball. I'm just saying that sometimes, not all high schools are created equal. The resources aren't the same in every high school. And it can be hard to be away from your team for a time and then come back and have 2 weeks to get ready
for regionals,
for some big thing, right?
If they win cup in the fall, then they have to play high school, and then they're going right into that regional. Yeah, I can see where they don't like that.
Yeah, and then just that high school is a condensed season too. You're playing probably
4 games a week.
4 games a week, and if you're practicing 2, you're probably playing 6 days a week.
And in the rain.
We don't not play.
Right.
Unless there's lightning. I know.
But then the schedules get backed up with the storms.
Yeah,
too.
Storms, and I know it was back in our day. I remember playing when there was lightning. I remember seeing it. Booter Park is more like Valley Park, and it was towards there. But, a Lightning, I'm sure, was over Fenton. And I remember my coach being like, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. And he was like, we're good. Keep practicing. Whereas now you see Lightning, which is probably the right thing to do, by the way.
Get off the field.
Get off the field.
Yeah.
But right. So many things have changed. I just wanted to say thank you for coming on. I hope this was, something that you enjoyed. And, John Schneider was just I think too, thanks, right, to all of our advocates too. He obviously coached you. You had people that were pushing for you to be in the Hall of Fame, which you certainly more than deserved. And it's so nice to have champions, reaching out and saying, here's somebody you got to talk to.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Any words of wisdom for, I always like to close it with something. I feel like, with age comes a little perspective. My perspective watching my 9-year-old play now is much different than I was watching my 18-year-old and now 16-year-old play. I think I've chilled a little bit more. And I've definitely learned lessons about each of my kids has a different personality and likes to be motivated in a different way. For my third born, it's food. Like, just don't talk till he has food. My 9-year-old may or may not want to talk about it right away. My 18-year-old wanted to dissect it right away. And then just enjoying the game and watching your kids play. From advice from somebody who's had so many awards, in the Hall of Fame, you're still connected to the game. You're probably going to be connected more eventually, maybe as a grandparent. Any words of wisdom for those young parents who are out there with young kids just starting this journey and going, oh my God, how many games and practices do we have?
It's a lot. Just to, try to enjoy the moment and let the kids play and if they're really involved and really want to do it, then go with it, but don't push them. But for them to be happy and just the opportunity that they have today is just great.
Well, Karen, thank you for joining me. Thank you for letting me sit at Lombardo's. By the way, it's here. It's like 3-ish, 3:25.
We're going to roll out some homemade toasted raviolis.
It smells so good, you guys. So, any location, but of course, if you're near the airport and you're like, oh, we need a bite to eat, this would be a place to come. It smells amazing here already. Jen Siess with you here on Soccer Mom Sunday, wrapping up with Karen Lombardo. Make sure you like, review, follow, share, and then subscribe, because then when it drops, you don't even have to do anything. It just pops on your computer. Thank you guys so much, Karen.
Thank you.
And we'll see you on the flip side with a new episode.